Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome to episode 11 of Rock and Roll Religion, where we're talking about probably one of the most well known rock bands of all time, the immortal Creedence Clearwater Revival. And to help me do that, I have a newbie to YouTube, although he's been part of the fellowship for a while. Please let me welcome to YouTube, Mr. Vynyl Revyvl.
Yes,
How's it
sir.
going, man?
It's going good. Thanks, buddy. And how you doing?
Doing good. Welcome to the platform, man.
The pleasure's all mine. When you told me, hey, you want to talk Credence? I'm like, yeah, when and where and how much money will it cost me? I'm there.
Well, I mean, this is it's all part of the friendly service here. And then we're talking this album right here specifically, which has to be Credence's best work.
Absolutely. And their most popular commercial success, too. This where has put them on the map and in all of classic rock history.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably their big. When you look at the songs on this record, too, this album's an absolute titan.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I listen to most of these songs just because it's CCR and it's some of their best stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I never knew it was on this album until we started doing this review. And holy shit, dude.
And it's got everything. It's got blues. It's got Elvis. It's got Marvin Gaye. It's got everything. And it's got John Fogerty.
It's got some country stuff in there, too.
Yeah, Looking Out My Back Door, which is a reminiscence of a book his mother used to read to him when he was a child. Giants doing cartwheels, statues wearing high heels. That was all part of that book.
Yeah. And, you know, that was one of those things, like, I don't think people realize that's John Fogerty's own addition into the band.
He ran a tight, yeah, absolutely. But it also became a classic. And back then in the 70s, those were a perfect 45, 2-minute on the radio, and it literally jumped off the radio back then. Talk to any old timer, they'll still tell you about Creedence and how good it is. It's still good to this date. Look at both of them.
I mean, even though it was recorded in 1970, it still sounds good to this day.
It aged very well.
No, it really did. And I think that's because some of their stuff, my personal favorite being Who'll Stop the Rain.
Okay.
It's just timeless in how they recorded it and the attitude they put into it.
And if you look at the album a little closer, you'll see that where there's a sign there. It says clean, tight, and bluesy. That's basically how Creedence would define or describe their music. And again, some music just ages well. You got statues.
And you know what? That description of this band is perfect. Not only just on this album, but its entirety.
Exactly. They got earlier albums. You could tell there was potential. There was really good and really bad. But still, there was always this genius. And again, Pope, I'm a John Fogerty fan. And I think that
there's very little bad on their earlier records.
Well, what's good is really good, I find, as a fan. Now, mind you, I'm not a professional critic. I'm just a fan. I find some of their song is really good and I guess less commercial, but really good also. So not so good. I don't know. It depends who you talk to.
Well, I mean, you're talking to a man who does a channel on heavy metal. Less commercial does not mean bad.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. So if you look at it,
not as many people bought it.
So yeah, exactly. And it could be a gem in the rough, which what I think is Creedence is. All their 7 albums, even Mardi Gras, the last one, they're still good in there. There's nothing bad about this band. That's why it's my favorite band.
I mean, you're absolutely correct in that every single one of their albums has something to recommend it, even if it's only a couple of songs. These guys just kept performing to a very high standard from minute 1 in 67 to when they ended in, I think, 74.
72 when their official breakup, but there's a few album releases after that.
Okay.
They did, yeah.
So the band
72.
officially broke up in 72.
Yes.
But they had a couple of albums pretty much already in the can by then.
Oh, yeah. Waiting to be released. Actually, there's one album that came out in 88, just to show you, from Fantasy Record, which was their label. It came out in 88, which was Fillmore East, Creedence at Fillmore East, which is a great piece of work. The only problem is you got to go and get it bootleg. It's like $150 for a tape or a burnt out CD. But to say to what you say, they were so good that their music was so eternal that even 5, 3, 5, 10, 20 years later, they were still putting out albums, their label that is, and you've thought, oh, wow, the band's still together. That's how good these guys are.
Yeah, and they were just releasing demo tracks and things.
Live albums.
Yeah, live albums, stuff like that. Because the record label had all that unused material. Mm-hmm. And they were just trying to kind of capitalize on the success that was CCR.
But the one thing about Creedence Clearwater Revyvl, and you said it, they are timeless and eternal. They could have came out in the 40s. They could have came out in 1999 during the grudge era. These guys are classic. They sound good. They age well. That's the beauty of that band.
Succeeded in either era. I don't know about the 40s so much because I don't know that the world was ready for rock and roll.
No, it was still a good band and jazz. Yeah, you're right. Okay, bad comparison. Maybe 50s.
Well, blues was still around at that point, and there's a hell of a lot of blues in this record.
Yeah, that's the beauty. Again, like I told you, clean, tight, and bluesy is their motto for their music, and you can tell. Whether it's their first album
I think this album really was the perfect year, especially to drop something like this.
70s, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, this was 1970.
Yes.
So we had just been introduced to Black Sabbath.
Mm-hmm. Another blues-based band, in case you're wondering.
Oh no, I mean I'm fully aware. They started as a blues band named Earth in 1968.
Yeah, who am I to say this? I'm talking to the Pope here. My apologies, sir.
And speaking of Sabbath, we are. I don't know whose channel it's going to be on yet. It might be on mine. It might be on Nick's. But we are going to be doing a absolute retrospective on all of Black Sabbath.
Oh, cool! Even from
the tail end,
okay,
to the beginning,
okay,
in order, and we're going to be doing probably at least an hour and a half on all of their albums.
Oh, I'll be sitting in for that with a couple beers for sure.
Oh man, you can be on the stream if you want.
Mind you, I might just say, yeah, good comment and all that. I love Sabbath and all that, but if you want me on the stream, I'll be in. I'll drop in my 2 cents.
No, absolutely, man. I mean, that's what it's there for. Is like I think it's the entire stream is going to be me, Nick, 70s, and probably Imperatus.
All right, cool. I'm in. Send me the link.
But we'll get to that when it gets closer. I also want to do a 4th of July stream for The Glorious Burden by Iced Earth.
Okay, those guys I'm not too familiar with. You're the metal guy, Pope. I'm the classic rock guy, just so
Yeah,
you
I
know.
mean, when it comes to um, basically the history, basically history metal, Iced Earth is one of the OGs,
Okay.
and this album from them is basically an America fuck yeah anthem.
Okay.
That ends in a 30-minute kind of reenactment of Gettysburg the movie.
Oh, wow.
That all the fans have basically called the Gettysburg trilogy, and it's
Okay.
fantastic. And it starts off with a metal version of the American national anthem into what the band calls Declaration Day,
Okay.
where they kind of encapsulate the initial reason why we rebelled against the British.
Right.
And it's one of those just fist pumping, just horn throwing moments.
Chest pumping.
Yeah, it's just like, yes, like this is what and Spider even says it when the eagle cries. It's a fucking fantastic record, and I want to do a stream on all of that. Who knows? You might be there. Spider's probably going to be there, given his interest in it.
Well, it sounds, as a music lover, it sounds like a go. I'm in.
Oh no, I mean, it's going to be awesome. But before we get into that, there is another period of American history that CCR is pretty much synonymous with, and that would be the Vietnam War.
Yes.
And it's one of those, probably not the war you want to be associated with, in that it's the least popular war in American history.
Yes.
Um, but at the same time, the guys on the ground were listening to shit like this
Yep.
when we were going into combat. So I think it's very relevant and very cool to talk about, you know, the sound of this record as the guys in Vietnam would have seen it.
Uh, the thing is, when you listen to Creedence and you think of Vietnam War, there's two songs: "Fortunate Son" and "Run
Yep.
Through the Jungle." Okay.
The goes right on this album, and Jesus Christ, just that intro, that
I know.
guitar slide intro is just,
Yes.
ooh,
Yes.
yes.
And again, I have a belief, okay, and I know you're a Boston fan, and
Yep.
but every band has a musical genius, and this band is John Fogerty, okay, and that guy, if he would have had more creative thing, well, he held the band up for 4 years, but still, there's nothing that guy could not do, and the beauty is,
And
imagine
for a
if he
lot,
would,
and as a Boston sports fan, for a lot
yes,
of years, most people won't know this, but one of the intro songs for the band for the Boston Red Sox
right.
for a lot of years was "Center Field" by John Fogerty,
Yes, we talked about that.
and it's still one of my favorite songs of all time because I'm a baseball player. I love baseball,
Well,
and
yeah, yeah,
he encapsulated the is like the perfect baseball song.
I know the guy is a musical genius, regardless. But just to touch on Centerfield, the album, I'm the contrarian Canadian. I like Old Man Down by the Road. That's what we used to watch here on Much Music. So that was, and the video was so cool.
It's a good song too.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
that's the thing is I I don't want to take away anything from the rest of CCR, but it does in a large part seem to be John Fogerty's band.
Absolutely. And John Fogerty's leadership and John Fogerty's hits or arrangement of songs.
Yeah,
Also,
and like they played them, and they played them really well.
and again, the guy knew what he was doing because you look 2022 now, Pope, you listen to this. People are still tapping their feet to John Fogerty,
Oh
whether
yeah,
it's 14-year-old daughter or my 78-year-old father-in-law. The Creedence is literally gold,
yeah.
timeless.
It's literally a touchstone for all of at least North American and possibly all of Western society.
Yes,
In that
absolutely,
they had
including
play,
Japan.
in that they had play everywhere, and it was a uniquely American style at the time.
Well,
It was blues rock,
yeah, blues rock, swamp rock, traditional country, and everything. These guys had
and
their toes
they
into
conquered
everything.
all of those barriers to
Yep.
become one of the most ubiquitous American bands of all time.
hmm Well, Pope, as a Canadian, I'll tell you, there's one good things that, well, there's many good things you Americans do, but music is top, whether it's rap, whether it's metal. Okay.
I'll
Forgive
say,
my,
I'll
forgive,
say this.
forgive this dirty word disco. It made it around the world,
Oh,
but still, you guys in the States, you do music well. Motown, the
dude,
blues, anything.
Motown is kind of my jam. Like Motown, soul, funk. Like I
Yeah.
love what they did with that.
Me too. Geez, it's like some of the best music ever made. They're telling me, "Oh, you're a racist white guy." No, I love Motown. Give
Like,
me all black
dude,
music. It's great. I love
and
make it
even
all black like
80s pop,
Motown.
I
Oh
love.
yeah, best.
And like the early Michael Jackson stuff is phenomenal. That's
Yes.
great. And
Well,
honestly, the in the modern era, there are some artists who have gone back to that sound,
and don't forget.
which I really dig. Like songs like band artists like The Weeknd
Well, oh,
and artists like Bruno Mars in the funk
yeah,
sound.
yeah,
He
yeah.
sounds a lot like James Brown.
Yes, yes. Not as cool, not brother A number one as Mr. Brown was, but still.
Maybe
But
not, but like he channels that feel.
but remember the British invasion. When you first look at it, the British invasion was based on Motown, okay, and black blues music. You look at the Animals,
Yep.
John Lee
Oh yeah.
freaking Hooker, okay. You look at the Beatles, it was all Motown.
Well,
You
when
look
you
at
look at
Rolling Stones, it was all the
when you look
bluesmen,
at rock and
Howling
roll
Wolf,
in general, it's all
yeah,
based on black music. I
and
mean,
Pope. Where does that stuff come from? U.S. of A.
yeah,
Thank you, sir.
I mean, let's face it, Johnny B. Good in 1955,
Chuck Berry,
a black man
the
playing
real king of rock and
playing
roll.
really. I mean, we are going to be doing. I have not told anyone this yet,
Okay. Well, thank you
but
for sharing it with me.
there is going to be a stream coming up on this channel
Oh,
on the origins of rock and roll.
okay, cool.
And yeah, that's we're gonna go into all of that.
All right.
Chuck Berry, Buddy Holly, freaking the Big Bopper, Richie Valens, which for my
Howling,
Americans is Ricardo Valenzuela.
Howling Wolf, Richie Valens,
Yep, I
Howling
mean
Wolf.
those guys were the origin of rock and roll.
Yes, yes.
Little Richard, my personal favorite, and Lemmy's
Oh,
as well.
just a footnote while I think about it. Little Richard covered "Born on the Bayou." I'd love to hear that version.
I'll try to find it. Like I know he did it. I just can't find it anywhere.
Well, it's one of those. It's probably like a grand for the 45. You know, if you can find it. It was
And I
back in
and I know for a fact CCR did more than one Little Richard cover.
Good Golly Miss Molly. I know
Yep,
that on Bayou Country.
and
They
that
did
was
a lot.
a fantastic one.
And you don't forget the beauty of John Fogerty and all these boys. They idolized everybody that was great. Elvis, Buck Owens,
Yep.
Little
I
Richards.
mean, hell, isn't that part of looking out my back door is listening to Buck Owens?
Exactly, exactly. Buck Owens and the Buccaneers from Berkeley. You know why? Because Buck Owens had his band from Berkeley, and Creedence came out, I don't know, 10 years later
Yeah,
out of Berkeley, California, too. So it was, But here's the real thing: if you listen to their first album, the self-titled album, they got influence. There's a few Hawkins songs. Dale Hawkins, not Rockin' Ronnie Hawkins and the Hawks, which became the band. Just so you know, Ronnie Hawkins is really big up here in Canada. This guy, Dale Hawkins, was a rhythm guitarist born in Louisiana, and John Fogerty put a spell on you. Working Man, I think Working Man off the first album. They were knee deep in swamp music. Well, what we call swamp music, influence from Louisiana.
What we would call Bayou rock.
Bayou rock. Okay, up in Canada we call it swamp music. So
Yeah,
or swamp rock.
It's basically all from the Mississippi Delta.
That's right. Where some of the best blues comes from, in my opinion.
We had an entire genre called Delta blues.
Delta blues, absolutely. And when it blended in with Chicago,
from that area, and oh man, especially when you mix in jazz elements, which was also coming up in that area.
Oh, yeah.
When you kind of mix the two of them, you kind of come up with rock and roll.
Well, yeah, and throw in some gospel, okay, and then you do have all the ingredients for rock and roll. All right.
Yeah, and that's one of the awesome parts about the early. And dude, I can't wait for this rock and roll stream with you guys.
I'm in. I got a lot of info for you.
This is a period of history that I fucking love.
Well, they do.
I mean, especially guys like Chuck Berry, who single-handedly created the genre, especially in one album.
Yep.
And like sonically, it was just this nuclear warhead that changed everything.
Absolutely.
And I mean, guys like John Fogerty were listening to bands like that in the 50s.
They grew up to that. They grew up in these.
They're like, oh shit. Okay.
Yeah. This is good stuff.
Yeah. Like, I want to do stuff like this. And it wasn't just, guys like Chuck Berry, but even Little Richard and those guys, they inspired bands like Motorhead.
Yes. That I know.
Lemmy was on record well into the 70s saying that Little Richard was one of his favorite artists.
And Little Richard was a pioneer and a badass too. A lot of people don't know some of the story. Yeah, Little Richard.
All of the early rock and roll artists have these things to recommend them.
Absolutely.
And it all came out of black music in the 1950s.
Yep.
And partially the reason for its existence was the segregation that was going on in the American South at the time.
Yes.
And the funny part was they had to actually censor the original version of Johnny B. Good.
That I didn't know of.
For radio play in 1955.
Okay.
Because the line, "Oh my, that little country boy can play,"
right?
That's not the original lyrics.
Oh, I can just imagine.
It's, "Oh my, that little colored boy can play."
Yes, and back in the segregational South, that was a big no-no.
They had to change that.
Yes, I could see that.
So because most record labels up here were like, yeah, we're not gonna say that.
Oh, and Pope, just to go back to Cosmo's Factory, two little tidbits that I know you know, but I'm just going to say it to for the broadcast, the stream. Cosmo's Factory. Cosmo was a drummer, the guy on the 10-speed back in the day, and I'm old enough to remember 10 speeds. Okay, yep. So yeah, so that was a drummer, and Stu Cook, the guy laying down there, he was a bass player. He was he still is, a great bass player. If you listen to on that album, Heard It Through the Grapevine, the Marvin Gaye classic, you hear bass and piano at the same. This guy could play bass and piano at the same time. So he came up with the word factory. This
Yep.
was a warehouse in Berkeley, California, where John Fogerty would get the band to more or less practice every day. And the reason they got the name Factory is because John Fogerty was such a prick. They were rehearsing every day. They called it the Factory. So that's how this album came to be. And ironically enough, hard work gives good product.
Yeah, it certainly shows on this record. I mean, pretty much from minute one with Ramble Tamble.
Yes, I love that.
Like, it's just a straight blues and country song.
Uh-huh. And political messages. That's the thing about these guys.
Oh, I mean, that's always been a thing with rock and roll. Is there's always been political messaging in there, but
Right.
they hide it well.
Yes.
That was my thing. I'm a lifelong Star Trek fan.
So am I.
And I've actually been watching Strange New Worlds.
Okay, really? You're
The new,
torturing yourself with that shit?
you know what? I don't hate it.
Okay. All right. Rick and Morty creator is part of that thing, right?
That's Lower Decks, I think.
Oh, okay. Strange New World. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
The new one that just started with Anson Mount as Captain Pike.
Yeah. Oh, I like that actor. Yeah. Sorry, my mistake.
And you know what? It's the first time since JJ took over the series that I've actually had fun with Star Trek. I mean, it's not perfect by any means.
No.
And there's a lot of things that they could do differently or should have done differently. And I'll be glad to do a stream about that. But I actually am having fun with the series.
What's it streaming on or playing on?
Paramount Plus.
Okay, I don't think we have that up in Canada. But anyway, okay, go ahead.
But no, like the political messaging and stuff like that, like the reason I bring up Star Trek was they used to do that back in the day in a very smart and erudite and kind of veiled way, in that they weren't preaching at you.
Well, they've done that right up until the next generation, until the movies. They were very clever and smart and erudite, as you say.
And a lot of the music from that era did the same thing.
Yes,
There was political messaging in there. Like Fortunate Son is the perfect fucking example of that.
Yeah. And you know why? Because the censors were so strong back then. Louie, a song from I think 66 or 68, was banned because they didn't understand the lyrics. The censors were so strong. So guess what? Those guys, if they had a message, they had to be very clever.
That's in Canada and Britain. The US never had that.
Oh, okay. That was in Britain. Okay.
The US never had censors.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you would be sure. You're from the States, but okay. I thought it was
that wasn't a thing in the United States until the PMRC in the 80s.
Okay. Yes.
That got shot down.
That's right. Because again, here I'm going back to my teens here, Pope. Remember Evil Dead? The movie from 82? The original Evil Dead?
Yep.
Well, that was they actually had a religious code in England, and the producer, Sam Raimi, almost faced jail time for his movie.
Yeah,
he went
that
on
was
trial.
Sam Raimi, like the same guy who was in charge of the Spider-Man movies in the 2000s.
I know. And
he had a lot of horror elements in there, but the problem was that it was an American movie.
But to go back to the censorship, I think, like you're right, it wasn't in England that it was censored because they have a religious code or something like that.
At the time, they did.
Yes.
And that's actually what would lead into, I know you were part of the chat on last week's Rock and Roll Religion on Bathory. And
yes.
Again, it's not your content at all. But at the same
No.
time, that actually fed into the reason for black metal was back in the 70s and 80s in the Scandinavian countries, you would be automatically enrolled on birth into the church.
Okay.
And this was a rebellion, and black metal was a rebellion against that.
Yes.
I mean, I guess, I mean, it's a lot overreaction in terms of from where you're coming from, but I can
No.
understand it in that, yeah, you baptized me in the church without my fucking consent,
Right. Right.
or even my parents' consent.
See, Pope, the way we raise our kids in Canada is, okay, I'm giving you my religion. When you're old enough, you can figure out what you want. You go for it. That's how we do it in Canada.
Well, that's kind of how I was raised in the U.S. Is neither one of my parents, they were both raised in religious households, and neither one of them liked it, and left it to me to decide if I wanted to join a religion or not.
Okay. Well, we went a little ahead. We did the traditional thing because we Canadians are kind of traditional. French Canadians were traditional with the Roman Catholic Church and all that.
Yeah, I mean, let's face
But
it,
now,
French Catholics pretty much entirely.
but now that my son is 21, like I don't force my daughter to go to church every Sunday. She's 14-year-old, but my daughter does know between good and wrong, bad and bad.
Well, I think that's the one good thing the church did and has done throughout its entire existence is give people a moral compass.
Exactly. You took the words right out of my mouth. Because we have a province up here, Pope. It's called Quebec, and they did a rebellion back against the church. It used to be called the Quiet Revolution back in the 50s and 60s, because back then it's the only province in Canada which is officially French, Quebec.
Yeah, I know.
You know about that. But back then, the church ran with an iron fist. Back in medieval times, where you had the government or kings, and you had
Well, I
church. The
mean,
church
that
had
was the
more say
difference
sometimes.
between English and French rule in a lot of ways.
Yes.
Is that under England, the church had a role in society, but it wasn't a leading one.
Right. But
And the church, and that was one of the things that we initially pioneered was the separation of church and state officially.
yes, and in the Magna Carta.
Well, I mean, in the Magna Carta that existed already, but it
Yes.
was never actually practiced, essentially. And then in the Declaration of Independence and further on the Constitution.
And kudos to your Constitution. You guys, you Americans, back in 1776. I apologize if I get the
So,
right.
the Constitution would be 1791 when it was
Okay, 1791.
when it was fully realized and implemented.
Yeah, so you were seeing the French Revolution from 1789. Okay, you saw the horrors of that. You saw.
Actually, the funny thing was we had already been having that conversation since like 1785.
Right, exactly. And you
Because
saw.
we had what we called the Articles of Confederation.
Yes.
Which were much looser than the current Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
And what we realized was it didn't work.
No.
Like every one of the 13 states could issue its own currency.
Right.
And there's things like that. So it just never worked.
But the beauty, what I'm trying to say is the beauty of your Constitution.
But then we fixed it with the Constitution. And a large part of the Constitution is not, the freedoms of the people. Like, that is part of it as well. But most of it is, the logistics of having a union of states that a license issued by
Yeah.
any one state must be guaranteed by the others,
Right.
which lasted right up until we necessitated driver's licenses or firearms licenses.
Yes. But
Which
my
isn't that
original,
fucking funny.
I know, but you know what, Pope? We're going political. This is for another stream.
Yeah, I do, and trust me, I'll get into that, especially as a lifelong uh, resident of Massachusetts, one of the most anti-gun states and anti-liberty states in the union.
I know, and
Which is
see,
fucking hilarious considering we're the ones who started it.
I know. The Boston, yeah, but the Boston tea protest. Some of the tea in Boston Harbor.
Not even
Yeah,
yet. The Battle of Lexington.
yeah, but
We were the ones who actually fucking fought the British on our own hook.
yes, I know.
And,
But what?
and actually won the battle.
Mm-hmm.
Because the
Absolutely.
British absolutely underestimated the number of militia we had lying around.
Mm-hmm.
And then we turned around to the Continental Congress and be like, hey, you guys got us, right? Because let's face it, Massachusetts or even New England as a whole could never have fucking beaten Britain on our own hook.
No, and okay. Just so you know, Pope, some of us outside of the United States would say you never won the War of Independence. It's only because the king in England said, "Okay, I can't handle this skirmish in the Americas. Give them their independence. I
Well,
got
I
to give
mean,
Napoleon."
there's certainly something to be said for that, but that also means we win the war.
Absolutely,
Is
Technical
that
knockout
we
is still a
got
win.
what we wanted, which was independence from England.
Independent and taxation with representation. Now it's taxation without representation and oppression without representation or by representation.
No, I mean, you're not wrong. And trust me, there's more than one political commentator, myself included, that would say you're absolutely right.
And what I was trying to say earlier is your constitution was crafted so well because you saw the revolution in France, right? Where they were just going and the horrors of it. You saw how the British and you had a civil war and how they were manhandling you and stuff like that. And you Americans, that
Well,
constitution,
at the time, it was a British Civil War
well, yeah, it was.
with the American Revolution.
But but what
And
happened
but it was the first time in history that a civil war didn't result in us joining another colonial power.
right.
And that was actually what the French failed to understand, and they started helping us.
Yes.
They basically thought that we would become a French colony.
Or a very close ally, a proxy.
Yeah, we would be more amenable to the French.
Because don't forget, the French just got their ass kicked up in Canada, right?
Yeah.
They lost all of New France, right? And
Well,
they
yeah,
want
that was what the British were raising taxes over.
yeah.
Was the 7 Years' War.
Mm-hmm. You know, Pope,
And
it's a pleasure talking to you. It's nice to have an equal. Usually, I talk to this stuff to people, and their eyes just glaze over. Dude, it's actually nice to know somebody
well, this
who
is
can actually,
this is where my country came from, essentially.
yeah,
And
yeah.
also, in a very realistic sense, one of my ancestors was John Parker.
I don't know that guy. Sorry, I apologize.
Captain John Parker.
All right, so he was
The
militia.
leader of the Minutemen on Lexington Green.
Oh, geez. Okay, he's a somebody then. Absolutely.
And he probably would have had a much larger role in the revolution, but he was already dying of tuberculosis when the battle happened.
Now, just so you know, Pope, Lexington, the Battle of Lexington, okay? Just so
Yep.
you know, take it for what you want. Mel Gibson's version of it, the French showed up, and they, because of the French and their navy, they crushed the British at Lexington. And
Yeah.
Cornwallis said,
Well, I
"We
mean,
are
that's
done."
a different Lexington.
Oh, okay. What's Lexington Green then?
Lexington Green was the town square in Lexington, Massachusetts,
Okay.
where eventually, where when the British marched out from Boston, we met
Oh, okay.
them on that plane with 77 militiamen to 700 British regulars.
Right.
And no one knew, and that was the initial contact. And no one knew who fired first.
Okay.
At the time, everyone was saying it was the British.
Right. Of
I
course.
had this theory that it was the Americans
Hmm.
because they'd all been hanging out in Buckman Tavern across the square where I worked as a volunteer in my high school years.
Right.
Um, before the battle. So they'd already been drinking heavily.
Right. So they weren't regulars anymore. They were part timers at
No,
best.
the British regulars had not.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought you were.
The Lexington militia, on the other hand, had been
Oh,
hanging out in the tavern for the
oh,
last like
okay. I see
3 hours.
now. Okay. And
So
that's a good theory.
it
And
would not surprise me, especially owning a period piece flintlock musket.
oh, nice, nice.
Not even a musket. This one was a rifle.
Oh,
This is my family firearm.
right. Is that the thing behind you there? I can't quite see.
No, I don't have any firearms hanging up anywhere in the Pope
Okay,
cave.
okay.
Um, that is my, Marine Corps flag.
Well, I know that, but there was something black on top of that. And I was thinking, well, you're really small. You're on my iPhone right now,
Hmm.
or on my Android, so that could have looked like something that could have been a musket. But you know what, Pope? You know what we got to do? You and I got to start a channel, the War of 1812. Man, will we have great discussions.
Oh man, we would absolutely have great discussions, especially with
And,
us antagonizing each other.
oh, yeah, Canada
because
versus,
because
well,
you because you cunts at some point burned our capital,
well, that's why the White
and
House
yes,
is
those
white,
were
because we
Canadian
torched
troops.
it. No, actually, those were British I can't say that English
They
word.
came from Canada.
Yeah, but they were the British expeditionary.
Expeditionary Force.
Thank you. I can't say that.
And the
So,
one building you assholes never had the balls to burn because you knew what the response would be
which one?
was 8 to 9.
8 to 9.
The
What's that?
Marine the Marine
Oh, okay.
barracks in Washington D.C. At the
Well, I don't
time, it
know.
was no, at the time it was the residence of the commandant of the Marine Corps.
Oh, got it. Okay, cool. But see, back then, all I know
Nowadays, it is
is
the
uh,
Marine barracks for all of Washington D.C. It's the only building standing from that period.
the embassy. Oh,
You there?
that ran into the hills away from the big bad British. Oh, Oh, there we
Well,
go,
I
Pope. You're
mean,
back. Was it
yeah.
Madison that was hiding in the hills? Hmm. But
Well,
this is
I
for
mean,
another
that was
channel, Pope. We're talking Creedence.
yeah. We're talking history, but we'll discuss that another day.
Yes. But that'll be a channel, the War of 1812, collaboration
Oh
with an
man,
American Marine.
I would love to do a channel on the War of 1812, especially
Yes,
because my
there's so
family
many.
was not
Short of John Lee,
involved as such, but a keen observer.
but short of the song of John Lee Horton, nobody knows about the War of 1812.
Well, I mean, that's not true. You had the song "The Battle of New Orleans."
Well, that's John Lee Horton. That's what I'm telling you about.
Yeah, you're right. That was John Lee Horton.
Yes. And the British kept it coming. It makes it sound like the British were a bunch of cowards just running away from alligators with powder in their ass and cannonballs in their mouths.
Well, I mean, there's something to be said for that era of propaganda.
Propaganda is a great. Well, what do they? How do you say that in English? The first casualty of war is the truth, right?
Yep.
And propaganda. So, but to go back to what we were saying, these guys, fortunate son, they were so good because not necessarily the censors, but they were smarter back then. You know,
Well, it wasn't even that. They were calling out the
the privilege.
middle and upper class
Yeah,
men
yeah.
of our
That was,
society in that they weren't the ones fighting the war.
no, and
Which
they would use their privilege to get out, like
which
as much.
I which due to my own research is inaccurate.
Okay.
That was pure propaganda.
Oh, okay. From the anti-war left,
Yes.
because I've been
Because there
told
was a ton of guys
volunteer.
there was a ton of guys who volunteered for either the Army or the Marine Corps. And
Well,
by the way, the Marine Corps only takes volunteers. We have
yes. Oh,
never
okay. I
taken
didn't know.
draftees,
Oh, I didn't know that.
ever.
Well, they say World War II had a draft,
Well,
but
yeah.
the Vietnam War was basically 85% volunteers. There was no. They had drafts, but not
I
to the.
think that is, I think, overestimated.
Okay.
I think about 50% of the guys who were on the ground
Yeah, we're volunteers.
were draftees.
Oh, draftees. Okay, 50%. Okay, because okay, so I guess it depends who you listen to and
But a
what.
lot of those draftees, and like here's the fun part, is the left would love to tell you that they just were horrified by what they saw and you know traumatized for the rest of their lives. And
Right.
there's certainly some of that.
Yes, of course.
But there was another element of the draftees that actually enjoyed the military.
And they wanted to fight for democracy because
Not
that's
even
what
that,
that war was about.
they
Communism.
enjoyed the experience of being in the military. And
Yes.
I've talked to more than one of them personally,
Oh,
where
really?
they were drafted. They served their year in Vietnam, and
And
then
they
they
loved it.
reenlisted.
Oh, they went for a second and a third tour of Vietnam.
Not even that. They just enlisted in the regular military.
Because contrary to what the left says, military is actually good. Guns are fun and big tits are great.
Yeah, pretty much. And also, even the guys that were there were there because they had to be.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing in the Vietnam War among the troops.
Right.
Was you don't have to like it, but you got to show up.
That's right.
And you know what? A lot of them ended up enjoying combat.
Yes.
Because this is something I know all too well. But combat,
Adrenaline.
it sounds psychotic to say it, but it is. It's the ultimate adrenaline rush.
Exactly. And you can't beat adrenaline. It's nature's drug.
No.
Okay. And there's nothing you can do. And I get it, dude. I get it. You don't need to apologize to me. It's great. And good for you. There should be more alpha males like you spewing this and telling people this. Because the problem is we're being fucking pebbled, rained on by all this lefty bullshit, this estrogen crap. Again, everybody forgot what it is to be a man. We men don't work like women. Okay, we might be toxic. We might be toxic. That's their impression of it, and especially the insecure women. Trust me, a real woman loves a toxic man. There's nothing better than a real man with strong hands and go get her. You know. So good for you, Pope.
Do and don't give a shit.
No, exactly. Well, who do you think the fucking woman wants, right? The biker or the beta cuck who sucks fucking lattes and shit like that? They want men, okay? And that's the thing, and there's nothing wrong with it. And good for you. You know what, Pope? I'll tell you one thing, okay? As a Canadian here, I never passed a medical for the military, okay? Not that I'm saying I would be chasing the rush, but I can sympathize with the rush you have. I'm a truck driver now. You know what's my favorite thing to do? Drive in a freaking snowstorm and make it to my destination on time. You know why? Because it's adrenaline rush. Because you got everything running against you. It's almost like combat. I get it, dude. I get it.
And even with my job as a machine gunner.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Every assignment we got given, we weren't out there to fucking collect skulls.
No.
What?
That's the grave diggers.
I mean, we're also not out there to collect skulls.
No, you're out there to make skulls, right? You're out there to make skulls. You're the fucking U.S. Marine.
We're out there to make bodies.
Yes, you're the U.S. fucking Marines.
It's like we're not out there to do anything anyone's gonna like. And yet, in the later eras, that's kind of the attitude that seeped into the Marine Corps.
Right.
It's like, oh, well, we need to win hearts and minds. Like, no, that's not what Marines do. We are here to kick you in the fucking nuts and accomplish our objective.
Yes.
Regardless of what that means. No.
Or regardless of what it takes.
Now, if our objective can be better accomplished by being nice to you.
Yeah, we'll do it forcefully.
Then we'll do it. Exactly.
Forcefully.
But at the same time, if you get in our way, we'll fucking kill you and we won't care about it.
Yeah, and not just one of you, we'll kill all of you around you. So be careful what you say.
Yeah, it's pretty much one of those, yeah, you're not going to be a thing anymore. And our objective will get accomplished anyway.
And just so you know, Pope, where I already told you this, but I'll tell it for the chat and the stream. I also I never passed a medical, whatever, but I also have my son who actually saw his father and the love of the military and all that. He's in the Canadian military right now. So, and he was trained by the infantry.
I've actually exercised with the Canadians a couple of times. And they're not up to our standard, but they're pretty good troops.
I beg to differ. There's a few tankers that are saying that if it wasn't for laser pointing, you guys couldn't shoot a hole. You couldn't shoot a barn in the dark. That's just what I heard from Canadian tankers.
they're able to test that theory at their own leisure.
Well, I don't know. It depends who you listen to. You listen to the Americans, the Canadians sucks at war game. You listen to the Canadians after a few beers, the Americans suck at war game. So who am I going to
Well,
believe?
here's the thing: the Canadians don't understand our tactics.
Okay.
Because they don't have the ability to understand our tactics. The Canadians don't have like what, a tenth of our force, maybe.
Not even. I'd say 60% of our force is administration. All right,
Yeah,
so you know.
So for combat forces, you have maybe 100.
Not even that much.
Of what we're able to do.
Not even that much. Come on, you got a Marine.
And you know what? I've trained against you guys, and the Canadians, I've like actual grunts I've trained with.
Right.
They understand what we're doing and why we're as aggressive as we are.
But they're not trained to think the same way that you were guys trained, right?
I mean, we try to. As much
no, but I mean,
import that mentality into all of our allies.
Right. But we got a PC culture here.
Because this is how you win wars.
Let's put it this way. Okay. In Afghanistan, Pope, we had a captain in the infantry that was court-martialed for doing a mercy killing with an Afghan Taliban.
Yeah.
Okay. He was court-martialed and he was paraded with shame in Canada. So we'll never get what you guys are doing in the States.
I mean, I was in when that happened.
Oh, okay. So you know what I'm talking about. Okay, cool. Yeah, and I've heard that guy.
A lot of us were kind of looking at it like, what the fuck?
Really? Yeah, really? What the fuck? You know?
Yeah. Like, are we in trouble now?
Fuck.
Because we've done a lot worse than that.
Oh, yes. Yes. But
it was kind of one of those, like, they did it for political expediency, and that was about all it was. But back to
but it still sucked. But see, that comes back to my point. It doesn't matter. Yes.
But back to CCR.
Oh yes, we're back to that now. Okay.
This is one of the bands that was basically the soundtrack to the Vietnam War.
Oh yes, big time. Run Through the Jungle and Fortunate Son.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
And also, my favorite CCR song of all time is "Who'll Stop the Rain."
I know. It's a good song. It's a good song. My favorite song of CCR from all times is on this album. It's cut number 10. It's 11 minutes and 5 seconds long. It's a remake of Marvin Gaye, and Heard It Through the Grapevine.
Heard It Through the Grapevine. They could have cut that song in fucking half.
No, are you kidding? The best part is the solo with the barcodes at the end and the drum rolls and everything. What are you talking about?
No, they could have cut that song in half and made a better song for it.
No, I'm sorry. Pope will agree to disagree. 11. They should have made it 15 minutes more solo with more. Sorry, Pope. We'll agree to disagree here.
Well, musically, it's not going anywhere.
Instrumentally, it is. Okay, you got the lyrics at the beginning, and then the band takes over. And the band, Cosmos Factory. Have you listened to the drum works on this? The drum works are genius. The cowbell, the cymbals, the hi-hat, and the drum roll at the same time.
There's some musically excellent things that happen in the last half of this song, but do it in sub 6 minutes.
Well, okay, they do have an edit version, okay, and it fades out. It's like 4 minutes and change, and I don't like that version. What I love about Creedence is how good these guys were, and where Stu Cook, Doug Clifford is the drummer, He's
Yep.
Cosmo. Two Cook. Where there's a part where the guitar slows down and you hear the bass line go and the drum and the piano go at the same time. That's the bass player playing two instruments at the same time and making it sound good. That's the part where you want to cut out, Pope. Like again, I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll agree to
Well, I
disagree,
mean,
Pope.
there's also bands entirely that do that for me.
Fair enough, but this is what
And
made
Rush is the number one. I
oh,
would.
great Canadian band. Love you, Pope.
Oh no, I mean, the first like 6 albums I'd say from Rush are almost flawless.
All right, let's do singles. Tom Sawyer. What about Neil Pearce?
Well, I mean, that's actually on the tail end of what I would consider flawless Rush.
Okay, cool.
Tom Sawyer, I am not a fan of.
Mm, ouch, you're hurting my Canadian delicacies.
I would say the high point of Rush is the sci-fi trilogy of 2112
2112, good album.
and the sandwich of Cygnus X1.
Okay, that I'm not too familiar with, but okay, cool.
On Farewell to Kings, and book 2 was on Hemispheres.
Okay,
And I actually saw Primus do a tribute show to Rush last year. And apparently Les Claypool can sing like Geddy Lee.
okay, I got a question for you, Pope. Isn't it pretty amazing that the tribute bands usually do it better than the original band that we
I would
idolize?
say better, but at least as good.
As good. Does that blow your mind? Seriously.
But that's their entire purpose,
Well, yeah, tribute.
is to play that as well as the original was.
Yes. That's the equivalent of us YouTubers admiring great works in the past. Kind of.
Well, I mean, to an extent, yeah. I still would love to have a Motorhead tribute band.
Yeah, with Nick as lead vocals.
And you know what? I've never actually heard him try to play Lemmy.
I never heard him at all. All I know is he was in a band, he wrote his own stuff, and he was lead vocals. That's all I know about Nick.
I mean, I would try to do. I mean, if nothing else, I'd try to play Lemmy's vocal. It would be fun.
Well, you got to smoke about 2 packs of smokes before you do that.
Well, I mean, that happens too. But no, I mean, that's especially with Rush.
I'm so impressed. Why is you Americans like Rush so much? I'm just curious. To me, that was a Canadian band, right? It was a good rock band from the
Because
70s.
they did shit in the 70s that no one else matched.
Progressive rock. Wow, Genesis kind of went close to it. No.
We'll talk about that on Monday.
Oh, okay. Okay. Am I invited too?
Well, talk to
All right,
70 about that one. That's on his channel.
Yeah.
We're doing a prog rock.
Okay.
So that's going to be, I mean, Rush is obviously going to be a huge part of it.
Okay, so they were groundbreakers, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's what you're telling me? That's why you Americans like Rush so much?
Well, not even just Americans love Rush. Everybody loves Rush.
Okay. I thought, well, as a Canadian, I don't see it that way. Okay, what do you think of Triumph?
Triumph was actually pretty awesome,
Okay. All right. Cool. Cool.
but they sang a lot of their shit in French, so no one ever.
And you're saying that, why are you saying it like that's a bad thing, Mo Chum?
Well, maybe because they're
You don't
singing
understand.
because they're fucking French.
Yes, sir. So Triumph was good. Yeah, I think they were out of Quebec somewhere. And but anyway, all right. Well, it's nice to hear a perspective because us in Canada, we look at Rush as a quintessential rock band. That's it. We don't go into the nicks and cracks and the whats and whens and all that. It's just kind of
No, I mean,
flattering to hear you Americans saying that. Wow, this,
especially the early versions of Rush, I can see why.
and just so you know,
Because in their first four albums, they were basically a standard rock band.
and it's so much so that they opened for AC/DC with Bon Scott.
Yeah.
They went on tour with those guys. So that's how good they were as a band. So again, we Canadians, we look at Rush, we're like, wow. It's just very flattering to see Americans saying, wow, Rush. And, again, because us
They were
Canadians,
doing musically a lot of shit that no one else was.
okay, so that's what it was. Okay. See, I never seen it that way.
Look at tracks like Xanadu.
Okay.
No one else, especially when they did that album,
Okay.
no one was doing shit like that.
Okay, so they were okay, so I get it now. So Rush was groundbreaking out of Toronto, by the way. I think they were out of Toronto.
I think so.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, our esteemed prime minister at the time in the 70s, Pierre Trudeau, Justin's dad, if you don't count Castro, okay, called them. Yes. He called them Canada's rock ambassadors to the world. So Trudeau had enough gumption to appreciate what Rush was.
I think was actually Cygnus X1 that they did in 1977.
Okay.
Well, we had only discovered Cygnus X1 in 1964.
Okay. 64?
Yep.
Okay.
So we had no idea what Cygnus X1 actually was. And they were correct when they called it a black hole.
Okay. Oh, okay. I see now. Okay. I thought you were talking about the band. The band wasn't around in 64. Okay, now I know what you're talking about. All right, cool.
And first of all, it's a great song.
Yes. Very good song.
And second of all, they were basically correct 13 years before anyone had any idea what to do with Cygnus X1.
Because they were culturally in? Is that what it was?
No, it was because we were just figuring out what black holes were.
Right.
And no one even knew what would happen if something got sucked in by a black hole. And as we know now, it would just get compressed down into the singularity.
Yeah, exactly. You would be dead before you knew it.
Yeah, but at the time, they had an idea that there was a world on the other side.
Yes, Lost in Space is one of those. There's a few science fiction from the 60s that looked well. Didn't Disney have a movie, The Black Hole, where they just go in? Yeah. So there you go. I remember my youth.
Essentially going through Cygnus X1.
Yeah, and wasn't Deep Space Nine kind of like the black hole was actually a
Wormhole.
portal?
Wormholes
Okay.
and black holes are entirely different things.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. The wormholes they changed it to wormholes, but still lost
No,
Disney the
it's not
whole.
changing anything. Wormholes and black holes are two very different physical phenomena.
My only experience with astronomy is getting sucker punched in the face and seeing stars. All
Yeah,
right,
good enough.
forgive me.
But a stable wormhole is something that is only theoretical at this point.
Okay,
We've never found one.
and Nick just texted me. Oh, it's Nick just texted me. I told him we were going on a vinyl channel. Something we truly need. Well, thanks, Nick. He's texting me, by the way. I told him we were on at 4 and I was going on with you and all that. And I told him
Yeah.
that I'd be going in as Vinyl Revyvl and all that. So he was just texting me. Again, I'm on my here we go. Super chat's coming our way. I was teasing him because when he was having his super chat things or his 1,000, he was monetized. I kept super chatting him too, like fucking. I think I spent $100 on him. So I'm like, we're on live on Pope's channel at 4. No super chat. Nick, LOL. He's like, oh, super chats are coming. It's like, okay, dude, you're missing my joke.
I mean, someday I hope to actually be able to accept the super chats, but I can't.
Fuck yeah. And I hope you accept my Canadian pesos and you buy some good Canadian beer with it. Or some really good American beer like Old Milwaukee and Pabst Blue Ribbon. I love that
PBR
stuff.
is actually not bad.
Yeah, I know. And they're a staple of Americana. Americana, my friend. Something that you Americans do and only you do. All right? Pabst is
Yeah.
good beer. Old Milwaukee's got a good
It's
aftertaste.
something we take for granted a lot of times.
Yeah,
Is
you do.
the United States, we tend to take our own, and this album is kind of example of it.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we affect the entire rest of the world, and then we try to claim that we don't.
Well, what did I tell you, right? Your Constitution, your Statue of Liberty, it's a beacon to the world for freedom. Your Constitution was crafted during the French Revolution, the British oppression, and all that shit. Okay? You have the mint, Ulta Magna Carta, which is called the Constitution. Your amendments are geniuses, by the way. You got people from the 17 and 1800s. Okay, Pope, can I drop a bomb on you? My favorite
Yeah.
president of your Americas is Jackson. That guy was a Buccaneer. Did you know that?
Andrew Jackson, yeah.
Yeah, Andrew Jackson. He's my favorite president of your Americas. And again, your music, there's nothing that you Americans
Well,
do
no,
better.
he
And
there's a reason a lot of people shy away from him.
I don't. I don't. Vinyl Revyvl, everybody. Send your comments to me.
He
He
killed
per,
an
he per,
awful lot of Native Americans.
I know. What was it? The Trail of Tears, the
Yep, that
Cherokees.
was Andrew Jackson.
Again, is he a man of his time? So was Marx. Did you ever hear Marx talk about blacks and Jews? Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Didn't Jackson buy Louisiana from the French so Napoleon could
no,
feed
actually,
it?
that was Jefferson.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Still, Jackson is my favorite president. And you guys, well, sorry. My second favorite president after Trump. Yes, I said it. I'm a Trump lover in Canada.
I'll say George Washington was the best president of all time.
He wasn't much of a general. In Canadian history books, he only won 2 battles. He was
No,
one
he
of the
didn't.
worst
Well, that's the thing is,
Canadian history, right? Written by the British.
and he was the only person that could have become our first president.
We got one of those guys too. He's called Sir John A. Macdonald. He unified 4 provinces. He was Scots. Only a Scotsman could unify the French, the Irish, and the British at the same table and make us all agree together. Sir John A. Macdonald.
Well, I mean, most of Canada wants the United States to basically eradicate the French.
Okay. All right.
Come in.
Is it because we wear white Speedo in Florida? Or Myrtle Beach? Is that why?
Well, I mean, also because most people from Montreal I've ever met have been absolute cunts.
Yes. Well, see, my saving grace is I'm from Ottawa, so I'm not a cunt. I'm not a cunt. I'm a prick. So just so you know, people.
Sure.
Well, you get some good people. It depends what neighborhood you're in. All right. In Montreal, you get all classes. It's kind of like New York. Montreal, for the longest time, was competing against New York. From like Canada, Montreal was the first one to have the first elevator in a skyscraper. Okay. And Montreal was always coined. I know it was a steam elevator, but don't laugh at me. Okay. But Montreal was always just like you guys in Boston and Halifax. You know how you got a twin city thing there? Okay, it was the same thing with
Wait,
Montreal and New York.
Thing with Halifax?
Well, yes, when
That's news to me.
the French municipal, you didn't know that,
No.
or is it? Oh, okay. Well, yeah, Halifax was always close to Boston because when the 1915 French munition ship exploded and leveled Halifax, the first help came out of Boston, not fucking Toronto or Montreal. And you guys have been tight ever since. So I've been told by a schooner. Schooner is what we call people from Nova Scotia.
Maritime.
Yes. Well, not Maritime. Maritime, there's 4 provinces. Schooners are usually from Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
The Acadians, which is
Well, I mean, that's not
New Brunswick.
surprising because Nova Scotia has wanted to be part of the U.S. for decades now.
Yeah. Well, basically, yeah.
Because they're basically northern Maine.
Yeah, New Brunswick is an extension of Maine with French people in there. And your Louisiana Cajuns.
The funny part is everyone hates the French.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, Pope. I don't hate the French. I love us.
I love memeing on the French. I'll put it that way.
Well, let's put it this way. If you're going to call me a fraud.
Even though the Norman French are the reason my family is even here.
The Norman French. And don't forget, let's go a little further. Let's take a couple step backs. The Normans were actually Vikings that invaded France.
Yeah,
but
I
Charles the Simple said, instead of going to fight them, instead of everything, he said, "Hey guys, take your land. This land is yours." Charles the Simple from France. We're talking what, 1,000, 1,050? So wow.
We're talking in terms of my family, 960 something.
Okay, well, that could be. I know that the French monarch at the time was Charles the Simple. They used to call him Charles the Simple because he was blunt. Okay, not because he was retarded.
No,
and
he was retarded.
Well, because he's French, right? Let me guess. But
no, because he literally gave his enemies exactly what they wanted.
I know, but you know what? He saved his army because he knew that his French army did not have the guts to go and fight against them. Okay,
that's not saving your army. You are too pathetic to even talk about fighting the current.
No. Hey, listen, Pope. I know a few English words. It's called compromise. It's called goodwill. And it's called intelligence.
And you know what? The French did a lot of compromising and a whole hell of a lot of surrendering entirely.
World War II, yes, but in World War One, they probably spilt more blood in World War One than the whole Marine Corps in 300 years of your history. Just so you know.
Well, yeah,
Check it out.
no, that's absolutely true, and most of that was stupid.
No, it's called patriotism, right?
Well, it was also called they did it.
All right. Again, Pope will agree to disagree. What about hey? How about that Creedence?
The French, even in 1914,
Yes.
were absolute fucking morons.
Well, their leadership was not the fighting men. Okay, big
No,
difference.
I'm not
Big
saying
difference.
anything against the French fighting men.
And some of these French fighting men
Those guys actually held the line for 3 years to come.
Yeah, and you know
But
what?
the strategy that
Yes, but that's
France
leadership.
was following in 1914 was straight up fucking retarded.
That would be the equivalent of me saying that the Marine Corps are retards because Joe Biden sent them into Ukraine. See what I mean? See what I mean? It was different.
No, that's actually not equivalent.
Okay. Okay.
I'm saying that their commanders on the ground were absolutely stupid.
Absolutely.
Whereas the modern Marine Corps, I mean, our officers are stupid, but most
Yes.
of them will get killed in the first, say, 36 hours.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of hard to get killed when you're in a chateau 20 miles from the front line.
Well, see, here's the difference between French and American officer corps.
Mm-hmm.
Our officers are right up on the line.
Yes, that's the difference. And the Air Force too, right? The Air Force flies their officers, and the grunts are in the back fueling and repairing. So
Well, I
kudos.
mean, the Air Force is extremely retarded in that if they can't actually establish air superiority over any battlefield,
They won't
they
go.
simply give the fuck up.
But
Which is why
Pope,
we make fucking fun of them.
Pope,
Because it's like, oh, we can't have air support over this thing. So, or one of our aircraft detected an anti-air radar over this thing, so we can't get involved. Cool.
but Pope,
We'll go in on the ground and blow the fucking thing up.
but I think you're lacking a little bit of focus here. Okay, uh, calling us Canadians French or associating us with the French. My family got off the boat in 1701 here in Canada. We've been Canadian ever since. It's the equivalent of calling you, Pope, a British, even though you did the separation and all that.
Well, I mean,
We're totally,
you're not
we're
wrong
totally,
in doing so.
we're totally different from the French. We don't
Well,
believe
I
in
mean,
communism.
you're not wrong in saying that we're also English.
Yes, but you're not British. You're American.
Um, and the Irish half of me
Yes.
loves fighting.
Oh, me too. Me too. The feisty frog. Call me that. The feisty frog. Vinyl
Well,
revival.
I think that's one of the reasons that
You were such a great
in
Marine.
Massachusetts, the French Canadians and Irish Americans
Yes.
just meshed so well.
We blend. We mesh.
We're both down for a good scrap.
Yes, and don't forget, in the colonization of our country here, Quebec and all that, we got Irish Catholics even more. I think it's might be the religion. I don't know if it's the culture. It might be the religion. The Catholic in us. We forgive our sins, but somebody's going to pay for it. French
Well,
Catholics, Irish Catholics.
I mean, Lavitz has a point. The snow monkey has a point.
Okay.
Everyone outside of Canada has this thing where Canada is this snowbound fucking ice kingdom, essentially.
Yeah, we're all homeless in the summer because our igloos melt.
But you guys do have much more severe weather than we do.
Well, yes, we do. Mind you, except for today, it's 85 up here in Ottawa. It's only 81 down there in Massachusetts.
Yeah. So, and it's not even a high wind here.
No, there's light breeze down here too.
Oh man, like everyone's like, oh well, Canada's like, yeah, Canada is colder than the U.S. mostly.
Much colder, and humid too in the winter. That's a bitch, my friend. Yeah, it's minus fucking 40, and the truck won't start.
Yeah, because by physical demand, it fucking can't.
But you know what's the good thing?
Engine, unless you light a fire under it.
Yes.
Literally light a fire under your own engine block. That thing will just not start below a certain temperature.
No, it won't. It won't. And that's why we got plugins and stuff like that. But the beauty of it is our Canadian chicks are hot because we freeze the ugliness out of them.
Yep, he's not wrong.
Especially the ones from Quebec, right, Pope? You ever been to strip joint in Quebec?
Yep.
So you know what I'm talking about, right?
That will not stop me from when we eventually liberate Canada
from Trudeau and his oppression and his communism from Castro.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, please.
We might also break Montreal. Why?
Keep Montreal as a gem.
I'm not kidding. I'm not even kidding. Everyone in the U.S. hates Montreal.
I didn't know that.
Because they're arrogant little French cunts.
Yes. Did you try Quebec City?
No, it's like we're just gonna absolutely murder Montreal, and then we'll figure out the rest of Quebec.
Okay.
In fact, there's apparently a section of Quebec that are all Bruins fans.
Yes, ironically enough. Yeah, those guys are cunts too. Just so you know, I'm a Sens fan. Fuck you, Bruins.
Hey, we're still in the playoffs. Are you?
No. We're playing golf and we're polishing balls up here. That's what we're doing.
Yeah. But we're hey, at least until tomorrow, or tonight, very least, the Bruins are actually still in the playoffs. We're still playing hockey.
Absolutely. I yield my complaint. I yield my complaint privilege because I'm a Ottawa Senators fan.
Oh man, you poor bastard.
I know. It hurts. Especially when those fucking cunts from Montreal come down and say, hey, you know. So yeah, trust me. There's no love there. Actually, here's a funny story. When Ottawa came out in '92, that's when we got our team. We had a home game at the Civic Center. We were playing in the junior because we didn't have an arena. We didn't have a NHL sized arena, so we played in the junior. We recorded the most fights in an NHL. Well, I'm not talking about the big bad broods, right? Where they went into the stands and started beating up fans that were fucking dissing them. Hey, but we had the most.
At least that was a fight between two original six teams.
Yes, exactly. But there was Ottawa has a record of having the most fights breaking up. Rangers. Is that what it was? It was at Madison Square Garden?
Yep.
Who was the lead guy there?
Peter
Uh,
McNabb.
oh, Peter McNabb, but there was another guy that went in, Brad Park or something. He went in and started hitting a guy with a shoe.
No, that was Peter McNabb.
Peter McNabb, who hit the guy with the shoe.
Yep.
Okay.
And I will say Terry O'Reilly was right behind him.
Terry O'Reilly, that's the guy I was telling you about. He's the one who hit with the shoe because Terry O'Reilly was doing color commentary in Canadian TV because Terry O'Reilly, even though he played
He
for the
was
Big
our
Bad
coach
Wolves,
for a long time.
well, he's Canadian, by the way. Terry O'Reilly is
Yeah,
Canadian.
I know he is.
Yeah. How does that feel? How does that feel, Pope? Most of your best hockey players are from Canada.
I mean, you're asking a guy who grew up in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yes.
And I don't know if you know this, but
No.
the the team actually had a practice arena in Wilmington, Massachusetts.
Okay.
We used to have our skating lessons right after the Bruins morning skate got over.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
So a lot of the guys used to, when we were little, like, I mean, I'm talking, I was probably 5, 6 years old.
Okay.
Would talk to us about playing hockey and stuff like that. And I took lessons from guys like Cam Neely, Ray Bork,
Cam Neely. Wow.
Ricky Middleton.
Ricky Middleton. Fuck. Blast from the past.
But no, like those guys were teaching us how to play hockey.
Cool. Brad
Especially,
Park.
I mean, I met Bam Bam a couple of
Who's
times.
Bam Bam? I know that name. I had a few beers during the stream. I forgot what Bam Bam is. Help me out here.
Bam Bam Cam Neely.
No. Oh, okay. Oh, they call him Bam Bam?
Yep.
Okay, because we used to have a French hockey player in Montreal called Boom Boom Joffrion. He's the one who invented the slap shot. So I thought that's what you were talking about. I'm like, what? Boston? No. Okay, cool.
But no, I mean, like Boston hockey has been a big part of my life.
And Irish people too.
Oh yeah.
And yes.
Why? Because we respect a good fight as much as anyone.
So, my man, we're talking about everything except this great album of yours and this great American band. We're doing everything but. We went to War of 1812, Constitution, Castro's bastard son, who's running this fucking country into the hole.
Yeah.
We talked about French and their incompetencies. We talked about French strippers, but we're not talking about the real beauty of it all: music.
That's true. And CCR is possibly the most American band of all time.
Hmm. And to go
they,
back,
they melded about 5 different American styles of music
yes,
into
blues,
one.
yes, their sound.
They melded blues, country, soul,
Swamp, yeah, swamp rock, bayou rock.
Yeah, well, I mean, they kind of defined both of those genres of like bayou rock and stuff like that. They were kind of a progenitor of southern rock.
Yes, the Almonds. The Almonds was kind of around, and Leonard Skinner. Would they be listening to them? They had their toes into everything. Creedence had their toes into everything.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that especially given where they ended as a band, things like
With
Leonard Skinner or the Allman Brothers were an extension of them in a lot of ways.
yes, Well, and don't forget Clearwater and CCR, Creedence Clearwaters, because John Fogerty lived in Florida for a while, and he decided to
Mhm.
name the band Creedence Clearwater Revyvl because he lived in Florida, in Clearwater, Florida.
Well,
So from
the revival part of it was basically what they used to call black churches,
okay, which is
the revival church.
okay with the black people and all that, the singing and all that. They would travel
Mhm.
from town to town. Okay, yeah, yeah. Even as Canadian, I know about that.
Yeah, and that also was a heavy influence on Elvis.
Well, in this album, cut number 8, "My Baby Left Me," was in a remake of Elvis, "My Baby
Yep.
Left." Yep.
A lot of their stuff was actual covers
Yes. Again,
of
I put a
black
spell on you.
music back in the day.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah, from great musicians. Like again, you know how rich the music was back then. You had
Oh yeah,
Jefferson
and
Airplane.
that
You
was
had
actually what broke the barrier
yeah,
between between white America and blacks who were really talented,
but you okay. I
and
watch your show.
rock and roll kind of breached that barrier.
Yes, and Credence. There's something about Credence. They took a bunch of stuff and just made it good. Okay.
Yeah, like they took a bunch of stuff, really raw stuff from a lot of the black bands at the time,
Yes. Yes. Well, again,
and they turned it into
gold.
absolute. Yeah, I mean, they perfected it.
And a bunch of high school kids from Berkeley, California. Okay, just to show you how rich the environment was back then. Show any 4 kids out of okay, just to be honest with you, out of Massachusetts, out of Montreal, out of Ottawa. How many 4 kids you know that could start a band who could play their own fucking instrument and having a lasting legacy 50 years after? 52 years now. Okay? Trust me, that's
I
how
mean, like
rich music
that's
was.
a hard thing to do.
It's next to impossible. Now it's America's Got Talent and YouTube and TikTok and all that bullshit. There's no culture anymore. There's no
And yet Britain has three of those bands.
yeah, exactly.
And well, I mean, they're retired now. Black Sabbath,
Yes.
Judas Priest,
Yes.
and Saxon.
Okay, I don't know about Saxon. I watched your show on Saxon. I think I'll look into those guys. But just for the record, Led Zeppelin is a boy band. Okay, their production, they're a bunch. They were great musicians, but still, they're a
They're a
boy
great
band.
rock band, but
They're what?
they're a great rock band, but they were following a lot of what would become the heavy metal bands.
Well, no. The real band that did that was Eric Clapton and Cream. They were the first, and back then they used to call them a super group, heavy metal band. Cream was the first heavy metal
Cream
band.
had a lot of the hallmarks of heavy metal. They didn't have all of them.
It doesn't matter. They were the first. Like you were telling me earlier. Okay, how well Rush would do stuff that nobody else did. Cream did stuff that nobody else did. Long guitar. Have
No,
you
I
ever seen
mean
Jack Bruce play?
you're absolutely right.
Jack Bruce
But
play bass
the
like
first
fuck.
the first band, in my opinion, to create the sound that was heavy metal
Right, Black
is
Sabbath.
Black Sabbath.
Yeah, I agree with you. But
With
again,
Black Sabbath.
but again, again, you can make bread, you can make a loaf. You don't make a cake until you take ingredients from the bread and the loaf, right?
Yeah, I mean
Cream
that
had
was Cream. had a lot of very heavy songs.
Yeah, well, the heavy bass line, the lead bass line and all that, Jack Bruce and all that shit,
Yeah.
Ginger Baker, speed drumming, drumming with his feet, double bass and all that. That was never seen in
Well,
65,
that double bass that Ginger Baker was doing was then it was a single bass drum.
Okay.
He was just playing it a lot faster.
Okay, but also Ginger Baker, you were talking about jazz earlier. Ginger Baker was actually jazz trained musician,
Yeah,
not
he
blues.
was.
That was Eric
And
Clapton.
and then you get into Motorhead, where
Oh,
he actually had two bass drums.
yes. Elvis had two bass drums when he played Promised Land. Imagine that. Two bass
Yeah.
drum for Promised Land. It's like, wow. But anyway, I still think that Cream is the original super group before it became heavy metal. Black Sabbath came along and made super groups heavy metal. Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, you're not wrong in that there was a
Okay.
ton of bands around at the time that were what we would consider proto metal.
Uh, how do you say that again? Say that again for me, please.
Proto metal. Basically,
Okay.
like they had most of the elements.
Okay, like Uriah Heep, Cream, Led Zeppelin.
Uriah Heep's definitely one of them. Deep
Okay.
Purple.
Deep Purple, yeah, they were really big. Wow.
Um,
Okay.
Things like that, where the sound had kind of mostly coalesced,
Yeah.
but there
But
was something missing, that deep tuning
okay.
that Sabbath then by accident kind of created because Tony Iommi in his last day at work actually
He
lost
cut
the
his
tip of
fingers
two of
off
his
the tip.
fingers. Actually lost the tip of two of his fingers
Yes.
in
So
a machine press.
Geezer Butler had to take over and have a stronger base.
Well, not only that, but Tony down tuned his guitar by half a step, which
Okay.
is which created what we call drop tuning.
Okay. Well, I wouldn't know that. Okay. Cool.
Uh, Drop D tuning, which
Okay.
was what created that deep, ominous sound
Okay.
from Black Sabbath.
Like MIB, for example, the riff that begins.
Yeah,
Oh
and
yeah,
and by the way, that is off their first album.
I know. I got that album on vinyl, and when I figure out how to use my camera, I'll be showing it off to you, and you'll be saying, "Christian, you're a French fucking bastard from Canada."
But no, I mean, like that was the beginnings of heavy metal.
Mm, I
And
agree. 1970. At the same time, I got a question for you, Pope. You think Pagan Baby off Pendulum 1972 was influenced by the rise of Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, and stuff like that? Pagan Baby,
I think it could have been.
because they're playing very heavy on that, heavy and fast, almost like metal was.
I mean, I think it could have very well been influenced by that sound because
Okay,
we're talking the same time frame.
yeah. Well, 72. What was it? Smoke on the Water was out.
71 was when Machine Head by
Machine Head,
Deep
which is a
Purple
good album,
came out.
and Lazy, and Highway Star and all that. And then by then, he's Black Sabbath was established band. They started off in the 70s, going through fucking
And
universities and
I'll basically come out and say it that Highway Star
it's
was
about
the
a car.
beginning of speed metal.
Oh, okay. Well, again, speed metal's out. I grew up during speed metal, Pope. I grew up
Mhm.
during speed metal, but I never got into it. I was classic rock. I listened to The Doors before the Doors movie came out. I listened to CCR. I listened to Cream. Um, AC/DC was as heavy as I would go. But I remember speed metal. It was these guys. We went to house parties. We went to the basement. You had these guys with fucking skateboards going around the unfinished basement listening to speed metal, right? So back in the
Speed metal came
80s.
out in the mid 1970s, really.
Okay, well, I
And
experienced it
in
in
the
the 80s.
80s, it was really perfected.
Okay, okay. Well, that's when I was introduced to it. But by then, I was always like in the 80s, I was in my teens.
Yeah.
So I'm still in classic rock because I discovered classic rock and so forth. So, but I remember when so speed metal was perfected, but you had skaters, and this is before Tony Hawk. Tony Hawk was probably skating around with listening to speed metal, I think, you know.
In the 90s, yeah.
Well, and I'm talking about the 80s, the late 80s, 88, 89, 90s,
I mean,
1990.
speed metal had already peaked at that point with bands like Racer X.
Okay, well, see, this is out of
And
my.
then they had already been, I don't want to say like, superseded, but they were the bands that were a little darker became thrash metal.
Okay,
Bands,
speed
bands like
metal and thrash metal.
bands like Metallica and Venom.
Okay, I remember that. How about Orc? Was it Orc? I had a few buddies in high school that would listen to Orc. Was it Orc? Sorry, I again, this is outside my field.
Yeah.
I'm a Creedence guy, but anyway, that's back when I first discovered speed and trash metal, and it was just fucking blaring music. The drummer sounded like he was on speed, just fucking going
Well, I
left, right.
mean, that he probably was.
Yeah, okay, there you go. But that was my introduction to it. 88, well, I would say 87, 88, 89.
All right, so you're talking the era where I was born.
Oh, geez. Wow. All right. Thanks for making me feel old, you prick.
I was born in February '87.
Well, I was born in August 1971 when, in the
This
golden age
album
of
is still
Creedence.
new.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said for the classics, and obviously this is one.
Absolutely. There's no
Or,
better. That's my favorite
no
album.
matter what kind of music you're into, you can listen to an album like Cosmos Factory and kind of hear exactly where your music came from.
And like you said, this ages well. It's like old wine. You can listen to it in 1970. You can listen to it in 1985. You can listen in 2022. It still sounds good. It's not dated. There's no synthesizer. There's no speed metals. There's no bullshit like that. So it's great.
And it came out before synthesizer was even really commonly available.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Which a lot of the bands in the '70s would then take advantage of.
Yep. Absolutely.
And really explore where that could take them. Rush
my
is certainly a huge example of that. Also, from my area, ELO.
Electric Light Orchestra, Jeff Lynne.
Yep.
I love those guys. Those guys were
They had
ahead of their time.
great stuff.
Hey, rock and roll is king. Hold on tight to your dreams. Evil woman. Telephone line.
Or even just Fire on High.
Yes,
Poker.
yes. But my favorite as a drummer, okay, I'm a garage drummer.
Yeah.
You would get me when the main drummer is drunk. You would call me out of the bar and I would come and fill in. Okay, that's as good as I am. But rock and roll is king. I love that little piece of
Dude,
metal on.
ELO just has a fucking great sound to it.
And we always said up here in Canada, okay, and I used to hang around at the music store, okay, but it was a music store that would sell records, guitars, drum set, basses, and pedals. And I became friends with the guy, and we both agreed that ELO was way ahead of their time. Yeah, they came out
Really, yeah.
late. They were. Their sound was so fucking amazing. Oh,
They
they're from
they
Boston. I never
were
knew
what
that.
guitars turned into.
Yeah, Jeff Lynne. And there's nothing better than ELO. But dude, kudos to your uncle. You told me the story. More Than a Feeling was actually maybe about your aunt. I heard
Yeah.
that. And yeah, that's so cool. Tom Schultz, who was doing her? Oh, sorry. I should be saying that. It's your aunt.
It
Sorry.
was Brad Delp.
Okay. Still, that's so fucking cool. Okay, so you're part of the Norman history in France. You have a musket on Lexington Greenhill. Okay, I think you told me,
Yep,
and
that
a song
that's
was written
still
about
in
your aunt.
family.
You know what, dude? It's official. You're a prick. I don't like you anymore. Fuck you.
But no, Boston has always been a amazing band,
I know.
and
Boston.
we'll have to do a retrospective on them at some
Well,
point.
I'm in.
We only
I'm in.
had the 3 albums.
Tom Schultz. Now, you know how Creedence has John Fogerty? Boston has Tom Schultz. Whether you like it or not, that's where I stand, and I'm sticking to it.
Oh no, I mean he was the entire driving force behind that first album because no
Well,
one
fuck.
wanted to find them.
Well, he did what? Keyboard. He did recording. He did engineering. He did guitar, power amps. More Than a Feeling. That was
No,
his
he did most of
drums,
the
bass.
production on the first album,
Yeah, I know.
and he was also the lead guitarist.
Well, of course. That's the least that man could be. You know,
And
that's the least.
and when you look at the lead guitar on that first album, holy
Yeah,
shit,
yes.
that dude's a
Oh,
monster.
I got a question for you. I got a buddy of mine up here in Canada. He's got a band, country. He likes Sabbath and all that. What do you think of Peter Frampton?
Peter Frampton. I'm
Well,
not
wait.
too familiar.
Before you answer, let me tell you what my buddy says. I don't like fucking chords in the solo. That's what my buddy said. I want to hear what your thoughts are.
No, he's absolutely right. You shouldn't have chords in the solo. Um,
But he learned that in L.A., right? Sitting in with these legendary like jazz musicians and jazz guitarists, didn't he, or something like that? But
I'm
anyway,
not
I just want to
too
hear
with
what your
Peter
thoughts.
Frampton.
I just want to
In
hear
fact,
your
I think
thoughts.
he's English.
He's British, yes, he is. But my buddy doesn't like him as a guitarist because he puts chords in the fucking solo. My buddy puts notes in
He's
his
not.
solo.
No, he's not wrong.
Right.
You shouldn't have a full chord in a solo.
All right.
No, you should blend the rest of the song into your solo.
Right.
But
Frampton did. Okay.
he did. I mean, Frampton kind of did both.
Yes.
So
Was Frampton ahead of his time, or was he a relic from the past with the chords
I
in the
think he
solo?
was ahead of his time in a lot of ways.
Okay, cool. Cool.
Because when you got into the 80s, you had guys like the Police
Yeah.
who
And
were
then
doing a lot of similar things to what Frampton was trying to do with Badfinger.
right. Was Frampton in Badfinger? I thought he was in Humble Pie.
He was.
In both?
I think they were, yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that. Well, see, Pope, thanks to you, I go to bed a little smarter tonight. Thank you, old great Pope.
Yeah. And this is just my own knowledge of the scene. And for every episode I listen to the album and the artist a lot.
Right.
And man, CCR still has to be one of the most influential rock bands of all time.
It is. It is. But they're influential, yet they're unique. That's the beauty of them. You don't listen to them.
They've never ever been copied.
They never have. Okay. Okay. Sorry, Tina Turner and Ike, but Proud Mary is not Proud Mary if you guys are singing it. It's Proud Mary if John Fogerty is singing it. Yeah. Thank you for honoring John Fogerty, but yeah, guys, it's not really the same. Like they've never been copied, but yet there's never once you listen to a song and say, that sounds like Creedence. Never you hear that, right? Because
You know,
Creedence is fucking
they were
Creedence.
kind of the masters of their own little pocket of the universe. In that
Yes.
no one ever copied CCR's sound.
No. And again, their motto, clean, tight, and bluesy. And with those, that's how they describe their music. And trust me,
And that's how their entire career went.
I know. And the beauty of it is
You were
nobody
tight
can
and
copy them.
bluesy.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Cool. Oh, Mr. Pope, sir, Mr. Pope. While I got you on the line here, your thoughts on the great Frank Zappa? Any thoughts?
He has a lot of really interesting ideas. I don't say I won't say that they're my favorite music of all time,
Right. But he was a
but
fusion band, right? He was a
but
fusion band.
he had some really interesting ideas and he explored some really new concepts
Cool.
that were absolutely unparalleled at the time. I have to go to the bathroom real quick, but if you can,
Go ahead because I'll keep the chat going. You go ahead, and then when you come back, I gotta go to the bathroom.
yeah, fair enough. All right, I will be right back.
All right. So this album came out in 1970. It's the milestone of the Creedence sound. To be honest with you, all their greatest hits basically come out of that. But that was one of their most successful commercial albums. And rated number one in many countries, including the United States and so forth. A little tidbit about Creedence. They started out in 67, but they played at Woodstock. But the ironic of this great Canadian, oh, sorry, I almost said Canadian. I apologize. This great American band is they never had a number one hit. If you ever had trivia night, Creedence Clearwater Revival never had a number one hit. Imagine that. The goal that these people came out of with. And basically, there were Creedence was basically the third stage. They had the Bullfrogs back in '59, and then the Goalie Wogs back in '64, and then Creedence Clearwater, Tom Fogerty and the Velvets, I believe. So Creedence was the fourth try at commercial success. And of course, they hit the jackpot. They started out with Susie Q. They recorded in '67. They released it in '68. They actually played it at Woodstock, and people cheered for it. That was pretty cool. And yeah, and then that was their first album, and they had some really bluesy. It was grungy bluesy. I love that first album, self-titled Creedence Clearwater Revival. It was great. And then the second one, Bayou Country. Like you wouldn't know this, folks, but uh, Born on the Bayou, the song, was covered by over 12 different bands on the same year the song came out. So the single was released in 1968, but the album came out in 1969, which was a great year for Creedence. They had Bayou Country, they had Willie and the Poor Boys, and they had Green Rivers. So 1969, that was such a great hit. Okay, can I go to the bathroom, Pope?
Yes, sir.
All right, I've been filling in. I'll be right back.
All right, thank you, sir. But no, one of the things that CCR, I think, highlighted was the connection between rock and roll and country. Because they did country cover or rock covers of country songs, and they kind of highlighted the common chord between the two genres as blues. Because blues and rock and roll have always been inextricably linked. Like that's always been a thing that blues and rock have in common. Because that's where they both started. Was, Delta blues back in the 50s. And I think CCR leaned into that in a lot of ways, where they did a lot of covers of 50s rock songs and 50s blues songs as well. And they made them their own. Even, some of the songs like Traveling Band and stuff like that. I think that was basically built on a lot of blues stuff. And they built a lot of their career on, Delta blues, which is not something to be ashamed of, because Delta blues is a very, very hard musical genre to get into.
I'm back, Bob.
I'm back. But yeah, I was just saying to the guys that a lot of this band was basically Delta blues.
Yes.
Delta blues magnified into rock and roll.
Yep.
And it could have gone really badly,
but it went great.
And they managed to navigate it to the point where they became the blues rock band.
Yes, and if you look at the, I've never seen this picture. This looks like it's in Cosmo's factory. If you look, it says third generation. That was a quote from a chronicler of Rolling Stone saying that Creedence was the third generations of bands coming out of San Francisco. Because back then, Berkeley was part of San Francisco.
Well, yeah.
So that's why you got that gold sign. And it was a Mr. Gleason, if I remember correctly, who said this is the third generation of bands coming out of San Francisco.
Okay.
Useless information that I'm full of, my friend, and I can fill up 2-hour podcast with just that.
But no, I mean, apparently San Francisco had a bunch of these bands coming out at that time. But at the same time, none of them, including the Grateful Dead, had anywhere near the impact of CCR.
Okay, I beg to differ. Only out of Los Angeles. Okay, Canned Heat. Only because they teamed up with their late great John Lee Hooker.
And they had one really good song.
Up the Country at Woodstock, going up the country. Yeah, and everything else is B-side. Got it.
Yeah, and I mean, even if I enjoy a lot of Canned Heat stuff, which I do, they never even came close to the sheer, basically, meme machine that was CCR.
I agree with you because you listen to the Doors or Jefferson Airplane at the time. There were a certain niche, okay,
And those
but
were the contemporaries.
I can play CCR to my 14-year-old daughter. She'll like it. I can play
Mhm.
CCR to my 78-year-old father-in-law or my 85-year-old dad, and everybody loves Creedence. It's just gold,
Yeah.
and it
Because it's
shows
good
that
music that's based on older good music.
I know, but yet they had a gift. See, it's one thing to copy, right? We were talking about tribute bands. Tribute bands are only good doing one thing: is replica. These guys could take something from the old, add their own spices to it, and make it even better. And that's why I think they're timeless to this date. That's why a 36-year-old and a 50-year-old guy who was born after this can still love and adore this music.
I mean, that's absolutely correct. In that this music became absolutely timeless.
Absolutely. Where'd you get this picture from? Pope?
That was from Google.
Okay, cool. I'll have to use Google more often. I thought Google was propaganda for the left and Joe Biden.
Well, I
And
mean,
truly,
it is, but
you can still find some gems, right?
yeah.
All right, cool. Oh,
But
and
no,
Pope, I'm just gonna. Sorry to cut you off, buddy. I'm just gonna. I'm Vinyl Revival. I'm new to the YouTube thing, but just so you know, my channel still has 0 subs, zero content. But the first video I'm going to make will be exactly my favorite album, Cosmos Factory, by my favorite band, Creedence Clearwater Revival. That'll be my YouTube popping cherry moment. Just so you know, I'm broadcasting it on your channel, Pope.
no, and that's actually one of the things I love about this channel is eventually I will, I got the guys like you who have always wanted to have a YouTube channel but haven't till this
Right,
point. And
right.
I'm the same point you guys were in that I got fed up with the bullshit and just created my own channel.
Right.
And I would love to have guys like you on all the time.
Even though we're French from Canada,
Well, I mean, you may be French, but that doesn't mean everything you believe is wrong. Just most of
there's a beautiful line. Agree to disagree, prick.
it. I'm pretty sure the French invented
Well, yeah, it saved us from surrendering so many times.
that. He's not wrong. But, no, I mean, this kind of stuff is what I set this channel up to do.
Well, cool. And listen, if Creedence is my favorite band, but I got knowledge, as you can tell, in Black Sabbath, Rush, Cream, um, Johnny Lee Hooker, Canned Heat. You want to talk Canned Heat, man? Fuck, I'll rap your ear off. Like you'll say, "Fuck this French guy. I don't want him on my channel anymore." He doesn't fuck up. You want to talk
No, I
music,
mean,
my man? You call me.
that's the kind of shit that I really enjoy. Is that
Remove. Pope Metallicus eye.
hmm?
Remove.
The hell are you
Slide
talking
3.
about?
Is that your girlfriend? She sounds pretty snooty.
2 hours, 8 minutes, and 56 seconds. 0.
Wow.
I don't know
Mic
what
is
the hell I
muted.
just did, but
Remove. Pope Metallicus eye. Remove.
Sounds like some married guy's nightmare there.
Slide 3.
yeah, pretty much.
Remove. Vinyl Revival. Mute. Stop cam.
But no,
Settings.
absolutely, you guys,
Share.
especially if you like the older
Invite.
stuff, like I do.
I
Leave
love
studio.
him. I'm a classic
You
rock
should
guy. Pope.
absolutely
Comments.
subscribe to Vinyl Revival.
Banners. Brand.
which
Private
he has a
chat.
brand new channel. Which is why I
SPYDYR
have it
Unlimited
listed in the comments.
04:01 p.m. Streaming on my TV.
Oh no.
Show.
Wow.
SPYDYR Unlimited 04:05 p.m.
That sounds like an
Live
insult.
2 hours 8 minutes and 57 seconds.
Yeah,
0.
the only problem, Nick, is I'm French. We don't last too long in New York.
Pope Metallicus I. Remove.
All right, I'm
Vynyl
going to
Revyvl.
end this here because I can't
Mute.
fucking tolerate
Stop
this
cam.
goddamn thing anymore.
Settings.
She's
I don't
driving
know
us
what the
both
hell I
fucking
did- I don't know
crazy.
what the hell I did
Invite.
to trigger it,
Leave studio.
but
Having issues?
this thing is
Comments.
going to
Banners.
piss me the hell off.
Brand.
And Nick,
So,
thanks for the compliment, Nick. Thank you. I sound American now. A Canadian boy from Ottawa sounds Canadian. Thanks,
Example.
Nick.
Click on a comment to show it on screen. Slide 3.
so
Vynyl
we're going to
Revyvl.
end this here.
Live 2
All right,
hours
Bo.
and 57 seconds. 0. Mic is muted.
No, I'll absolutely have you on.
Remove. Pope
If you
Say
want
when,
to
Metallicus.
do that
Remove.
Origin of Rock and Roll stream
CCR.
Say
that I
when.
was talking about,
Slide 3.
we'll absolutely talk about it.
Remove.
But
Yeah.
after
Revyvl.
this thing is goddamn done
Mute.
talking, so
Settings.
I'll talk to you later,
Share.
man.
All right, buddy. Thanks for bringing me on for this, and thanks for pimping me. I appreciate it. You're a good guy, even though you're a Bruins fan.
Banners. Brand.
And
Private chat. SPYDYR Unlimited 04:01 p.m.
and for me,
Streaming on my TV. Show.
this thing will not stop
SPYDYR
talking.
Unlimited 04:05
So,
p.m. CCR. Show.
take care.
SPYDYR Unlimited 04:11 p.m.
I love you all.
Okay, you've got
And,
my ear.
I'll catch you next time.
Show. SPYDYR Unlimited 04:11